Well, if you like to talk college football expansion, just with the conferences, not even just playoffs, well, then we have more news around the Pac-12, potentially looking at two teams that they want to expand with. And I want to dive into it, break it down, and give you guys my thoughts here because this is actually pretty interesting. But before we do that, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what y'all are thinking down in the comments below. Do you guys think the Pac-12 will expand with more teams, or do you think the Pac-12 will be eaten up by some of the other conferences like the Big 10 and the Big 12? With USC and UCLA leaving the Pac 12 for the Big 10, you feel the conference is in desperation mode, trying to gain new members to help strengthen their membership reach and also just their image with college football. And as the Pac 12 is looking to potentially negotiate a new media rights deal, George, and I believe it's Klivkoff, who's visiting San Diego State and SMU to kind of gauge some interest if they want to join the Pac-12 conference. And, I think this one's pretty interesting because per Brett McMurphy, the Pac-12 commish, George Klavikoff, visiting SMU Wednesday, sources told Action Network HQ, San Diego and SMU are top Pac-12 expansion, which is expected to rely heavily on digital streaming services. So, although Klivkoff has made it very clear that the media rights deal for the Pac-12 is going to come first, it does appear that he's going to try to put at least a little bit of prioritization on expanding his conference before they get this media rights deal done to maybe try to help boost and strengthen that deal. Because when you talk about the streaming services aspect, this is interesting because when I look at what they could be potentially earning in terms of streaming rights, maybe like with Amazon Prime, Prime Video has Thursday Night Football. I don't really see that succeeding well with college football because we can see so much college football on ESPN, CBS, ABC, Fox. I mean, Fox has Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2. Like, it's crazy how many providers and cable providers there are that have their own streaming services. Like, I think it's, safe to mention all 5 of those cable providers have their own streaming service. So you're making money on those deals through the cable TV and through the streaming service. Like, with the ESPN, Oklahoma, the Sooners, they have a Big 12 or they have a Sooner Vision channel on ESPN Plus where you can literally watch all OU content. Big 12, they have a deal where they have like a Big 12 channel, the Longhorn Network. It's on ESPN, but yet you can watch all of those games on cable TV as well. And I feel like that's maybe a little bit more attractive because when you look at, what it costs for Prime, which I think it's like $7.99 now, and they have like 80 million people. So you multiply that by 80 million. That's only a $639.2 million number. I mean, compared to what the Big Ten got, what was it, like $7 or $8 billion for 10 years, and $639.2 million. That's nothing. If you're the Pac-12 and you got 12 teams, that's not enough to go around. It's not enough to keep teams in your conference. And so the question is, what conference will expand first? Because now that I think the Pac-12 is trying to move and trying to acquire some teams, I think you'll maybe see Brett Yormark in the Big 12 really try to attack some of those Pac-12 teams out there and try to sell them on the idea to come to the Big 12. Because one thing that we know about the Big 12 media rights contract is if they are to add more teams that would provide significant value to their media rights deal, that amount of money that each school is getting increases. And so you talk about adding an Arizona and Arizona State, right? You're reaching new markets in the Big 12. You bring in another school like Utah, right? You're able to create a BYU-Utah rivalry. You talk about bringing in Colorado, who right now has Deion Sanders, and what that could potentially bring. Like, you could be talking about the Big 12, maybe potentially each school getting $100 million in that new media rights contract. That would be huge. Because you think about the Big 12 and a lot of these schools, some of them are smaller. I mean, you talk about Cincinnati, 40,000 seats, $100 million to that program would go a long way. And I'm not saying that's what the number is going to be, but I'm just roughly throwing it out there compared to what the Big 10 got. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see, does the Big 12 try to eat up Pac-12 teams, Or does the Pac-12 try to acquire more teams before they can get eaten up? Certainly the Big Ten would love to go after Oregon and Washington, and maybe even Stanford and Cal because of the academic portion. Now, you would have to wonder, right? Does Cal and Stanford, at that point, do they want to have that much travel involved? Would they pretty much just kind of disbandon their football programs? Because it's not like football really matters to them out there. They're more worried about who gets into their programs and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, when you talk about expansion, right, it turns college football upside down, and there's many directions that it could go. And it's exciting because there's a lot of theories that you could draw up here. If you guys have watched my channel before, you know that I would love for the Big 12 to be able to go out there and grab a Miami and Florida State out of the ACC because, again, extend your market. You're getting one of them, I would think, of blue blood or two blue blood programs that could potentially help carry your conference and add significant value. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. You might think I'm crazy, but listen, we're here talking about it again. We're talking about expansion. And it's interesting to say because, does an SMU and a San Diego State really see value in going to the Pac-12 because the playoffs are expanding? And it's not the Power 5 schools or the Power 5 conferences all get a bid and then just one G5 bid. No, it's the 6 highest ranked conference teams. That could mean 1 year you have the SEC and the Big Ten both in the playoffs because they have their highest ranked conference teams. And then you see the American Athletic Conference in there and maybe the WAC conference in there, right? Realistically, we could see that outside of the SEC and the Big Ten. It's anybody's game to be in the highest ranked bidding. And so I don't necessarily think the move for SMU and San Diego State to the Pac-12 is necessarily beneficial to them. I don't know if they're making that much more money. If you're the Big 12, I think you really want to go after those 4 schools in the Pac-12 and then maybe try to see if Oregon and Washington would be willing to join. I think that's your best bet. So go ahead and jump down in the comments below. Let me know what y'all's thoughts are on the Pac-12 expansion. Do you think it's going to happen, or do you think these teams get eaten up by another bigger conference?